Digging into the past of the Stargate program is full of little tidbits of information that are fascinating, but what are the most interesting things that we have found out? With that in mind, I am Sean Ferrick for What Culture, and here are 10 mind-blowing facts you never knew about Stargate. 10. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Cheyenne Mountain is home to a very real branch of the US military, the US Space Force. It was a fictional setting of Stargate Command, despite only exterior shots of the base being used for filming. In fact, as short a time as 10 days before filming was due to commence, around a dozen stock shots of the base were filmed, for inclusion in the series. These same shots were recycled for the first 7 series of the show, despite their gradual degrading through use. New shots were not filmed until the 8th series, when the show moved to begin using digital HD cameras. The site has become such a popular destination for tourists that the base has installed a door marked Stargate Command, though it guards a broom cupboard only. Allegedly. 9. The SGC Gate Room appears in Stargate Universe as Icarus Base. The nature of production on any television or film set is that what can be reused will be reused, and that is particularly true of Stargate. Initially, the gate itself was a new design for Stargate SG-1. The original prop from the film had been left outside in the Californian desert and was in poor condition, though a fresh model was able to be cased from it. This model stood 22 feet high, meaning that the gate room itself had to be enormous to accommodate it. The original design called for a 3-level set, though eventually 2 levels were deemed sufficient, with sections that were redecorated from time to time as production needed. The cafeteria, Daniel's office, the gym and the infirmary are all really quite similar when one looks at them closely enough. However, there was little chance that the set would be left standing after SG-1 wrapped production, and Universe was to begin shooting. Icarus Base, the last point in the Milky Way galaxy that many of the people present would see, is a redress of the SGC set. 8. Christopher Judge had a lonely makeup experience. Makeup and costuming began life as a relatively straightforward process for the bulk of the cast. As most of them were portraying USAF personnel, they wore standard military uniforms along with a standard green battle uniform while on a away mission through the gate. Richard Dean Anderson and Don S. Davis both received military-grade haircuts on set. Yes, Don S. Davis with his famously flowing locks of hair. Amanda Tapping kept her hair short until Stargate The Ark of Truth, while Michael Shanks had a slightly more freedom to do what he pleased, as his character was a civilian. That left poor Christopher Judge as the odd one out. To play the alien Jaffa warrior, he was initially covered in gold sheen for much of the early seasons, although with the headpiece on his forehead depicting the sigil of Apophis. He would also shave his head daily alone at home until finally, for the show's 8th season, he was allowed to begin growing it out. The gold paint was eventually phased out, and this was jokingly referred to later on in the series. 7. Children of the Gods went through several changes on DVD. In 2009, producer and showrunner Brad Wright spoke about the wish to recut and release Children of the Gods, the pilot episodes of Stargate SG-1. In many ways, the show itself had grown so different from what the original release had been that a revisit was more than warranted. The main impetus behind the move was, according to Wright, the musical score. Joel Goldsmith was the main composer on Stargate SG-1, and he had written the complete score for the pilot. However, MGM bosses feared that it wouldn't hold up to David Arnold's fantastic soundtrack for the film. So, a spliced version of both Goldsmith and Arnold's scores was pieced together and thrown into the pilot, dissatisfying both composers significantly enough that they took their name off it. Also, an issue was with the nudity that had been added at the request of the network, which doesn't feature again in any subsequent episode of Stargate. Both of these were excised from the DVD re-release. Additional CG elements were added as well. The original ending saw motion capture death gliders landing and acting as troop transports. This was removed with a cargo ship being inserted and an additional glider being added in the background. Finally, the Stargate Vortex was updated to better resemble the vortexes of contemporary seasons of Stargate, although this is the one change that was perhaps a little bit too far. 6. There was going to be a third direct-to-DVD movie, and it was going to be a crossover. In 2009, MGM confirmed that after Continuum, there would be a third direct-to-DVD movie to tie up the remaining plot threads left behind from Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. However, to date, this has not yet come to fruition. There are several factors behind this. One is the global recession that hit at the end of the 2000s. That, combined with the fact that the rise in streaming meant that profit from DVDs were drastically dropping, made the venture a far less attractive progress. While it was still in discussion, however, it was revealed that Vala Maldoran would not appear, but that it would be targeting as many members of SG-1 as possible, with Amanda Tapping confirming her appearance, with Michael Shanks and Richard Dean Anderson confirming theirs shortly after as well. However, development hell beset the film, and then MGM itself went into a financial crisis. While Stargate Origins would eventually come along, to date, Stargate Continuum is the last appearance, coupled with guest spots in Stargate Universe, of the original cast of Stargate SG-1. 5. 200 exists because the writers couldn't choose who got to write it. When it came to the landmark 200th episode of Stargate SG-1, there quickly emerged an issue that had as much to do with the politics as it did with anything else. This was a monumental achievement. 200 episodes of a series is something that no Star Trek series has yet managed to achieve. But who got to write it? Rather than let it fall to bickering, or worse, a show was devised as a Saturday Night Live style sketch show with a different writer attached to a different vignette. In all, Brad Wright, Robert C. Cooper, Joseph Malozzi, Paul Mully, Carl Binder, Martin Gero, and Alan McCullough were all credited writers on the episode. The framing device, a movie version of Wormhole Extreme, the proposed TV series supposedly detailing the adventures through the Stargate in-universe, is to be made, with returning guest Martin Lloyd interviewing/brainstorming with the characters in order to come up with a solid storyline. The episode lampoons Team America World Police, Star Trek, and Farscape, among others, making it one of the most enjoyable and self-aware episodes in the show's entire run. 4. Michael Shanks hates spiders so much he had to be blindfolded for the replicator scenes. The replicators replaced the Goa'uld as the main antagonists of the Milky Way galaxy as the show went along, as their unstoppable advance throughout the cosmos eventually threatened everything in creation. They were introduced at the close of the 3rd season in the episode Nemesis. That episode featured very little of Michael Shanks, aka Daniel Jackson, as in real life Shanks was recovering from appendicitis. This would actually be written into the show as it was the simplest way to explain his absence. However, it turned out to be a good thing that he was not present around the replicators. Michael Shanks suffers from arachnophobia. It is so bad that when he was on set with the replicator models, he would begin to shake uncontrollably, delaying filming. It got to the point where Jackson could not be absent for every scene featuring them, so Michael Shanks was blindfolded to allow him to film his scenes in peace. 3. The opening credits feature a cross-eyed Ra. The Stargate film in 1994 featured the distinctive opening credits of the camera panning around the Mask of Ra, slowly revealing the title music and the actor and crew's names. The final shot reveals the mask itself, complete with, as the producers felt, a cross-eyed face. When it came to creating the opening credits for the first season, there had been every intention of creating a new intro for the show. However, time ran short, and so the producers were forced to reuse the title sequence from the film. No one was particularly happy with this, feeling that every episode started with an example of how they had dropped the ball. The credits would eventually change, depicting more action and images of the cast's faces. The credits for the early seasons were then retroactively updated, again featuring action shots of the main cast, ridding the show of the movie intro for good. 2. ONeils Fruit Loops were no mistake. Stargate's answer to Groundhog Day consistently and deservedly ranks as one of SG-1's greatest episodes. It mines the comedy from every moment of the episode until that ending, allowing the audience to enjoy the SGC in a way that had previously been impossible. However, it's not just this laugh-out-loud comedy that helps the episode. The attention to detail that the crew paid was stellar. Looking at the Fruit Loops on the spoon that O'Neill holds at the beginning of every day, they're in exactly the same position each time. That is because they were all glued in place, allowing continuity to be honoured without much effort. Number 1. Schrodinger's Quin. Jonas Quin was, unfortunately, very much faced with an uphill battle from his first appearance. It is, however, indirectly somewhat of his fault that fan favourite character Daniel Jackson leaves the SGC, having been contaminated with a fatal dose of radiation that was received on Langara, Quin's home planet. Replacing Daniel, he struggles to be accepted by O'Neill, who holds him responsible for what happened. This thaws throughout Season 6 as Quin becomes more and more of an integral part of the SGC. However, behind the scenes, Corin Nemec was not being accepted by the fans. At the same time, Michael Shanks and the producers came to an understanding about how to use Daniel Jackson going forward. This meant that Shanks was returning to the show and Nemec was written down to a recurring status before leaving the SGC altogether. He returns in a single episode, Fallout, seeking SG-1's help after learning his people are experimenting with deadly materials. At the episode's close, he remains on Langara. It's later revealed that his planet was conquered by the Ori. Stargate producer Joseph Malozzi stated after this that he believed Jonas to be still alive, working as part of an underground movement resisting the Ori altogether. However, there was also never any more appearance of the character after that, so Jonas Quin is both alive and dead. Fingers crossed for the former. And that's everything for our list today. If you reckon we missed anything, please drop it into the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and remember that you can catch us over on Twitter at WhatCulture. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick. Pretty straightforward. Everybody look after yourselves. We'll be back with some fun Stargate facts as we go along. And remember, keep those chevrons locked and look after yourselves.